It's been a long time since we thought receivers were a potential strength in Madison. I think we might be there. We're going to talk about it on today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, my friends? I am Ryan Herrings, your host of Locked On Badgers, here to talk about your team every single day. Really do appreciate it. Also want to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. And we're going to bring friend of the show, Scott, makes his triumphant return to Locked On Badgers. We're going to talk some receivers, buddy. I am excited for this one. I think it's a good one. Thank you for jumping on the show, man.
Absolutely. I'm pumped. I've been working out, eating Built Bars, drinking Spotted Cow, eating grilled corn and Gophers. So I'm ready.
Love it, my man. We're going to start with depth chart. We always start with the positional previews. What does the depth chart look like? Who's new? So it really looks like, obviously, Chimere Dike is one. It looks like Skyler Bell has emerged as the 2. You have Markus Allen in there is probably a 3. Dean Engram as a slot. Quintez Cephus, kind of the UCLA transfer, slotting behind them. And we're going to talk about the young guys, the freshmen from last year's recruiting class as well. But how does that initial kind of chunk look to you? Is that kind of seem where we're at?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was baffled last year when we got to the end of the season and we got to see what Bell and Allen looked like with the ball in their hands, like why that hadn't been happening more. So I'm excited to see more of that this year. Hope that they can get the ball in space. And I'd like to see what Bracy can do too, get him out into space, play to his strengths. But I think the way you laid it out is basically how I see it as well, for the most part.
Yeah, by the way, if anyone heard that, a car just drove by my house honking their horn, so I apologize for that.
They knew the podcast was gone.
They knew we had started up. Yeah, Stephen Bracy is a super interesting one. I forgot to mention him because he's just been so banged up, but we saw him against Nebraska. He brought, a kick to the house. Like, he's explosive.
He's electric if he gets it in space.
He's got to get it in space. And it seems almost like if both of them were healthy, like Dean Engram and Stephen Bracy, it almost seems like Dean Ingram's going to be that slot guy anyway. And I don't know where Bracy would play.
Yeah, I'm guessing just kind of gadgety stuff. He always kind of seemed like Crookshank's replacement to me. I hope he gets that chance. We didn't get the ball to Crookshank in space as much as I had hoped we would. But even using him as, just kind of, a guy in motion, faking the handoffs to him to get it. That's what I'm really excited about this year is more motion. And hopefully we see this early on, and everybody hopes for this. More motion and playing to guys' strengths, jump balls to Allen, letting him use his size, getting the ball to Bell in open spaces, because Ingram's a slot guy, but unlike Bracy, I think he's got a little bit of a bigger body and some more mass to him that he can use to his advantage too. So I just hope that we play to our strengths more, Yeah,
and hopefully Engram is the guy that brings that, Bobby Engram coming over. Am I wrong in thinking that this is about as optimistic as you can be about the youth at this position at Wisconsin in a long time? Like, I was trying to think back to previous Badger receiver groups in the last 5 years, even 10 years. And I love Chimere. I love these 2 redshirt freshmen in Bell and Allen. Quintez Cephus, I thought was a big time addition. And then the 3 players coming in last year's portal, like Vinny Anthony, I'm super high on. Tommy McIntosh, that 6'5", potential jump ball, red zone dude. And then Chris Brooks is just a physical beast. Like, he looks like a tight end almost. I love the young upside here. Am I off base in my rose-colored glasses, or are you kind of there as well?
I'm there too, but as I was saying earlier off camera, it's hard for me to tell at this time of the season if it's like that diluted hopefulness that I go through every season, and then I've got to kind of talk myself back into reality. But And it seems like, and I agree with you, and I think we've got a lot of young talent, and I really feel like we have to make it pay off this time. We have to prove to other young recruits that we're actually going to throw the ball. These guys are going to have a chance to be pro wideouts and to continue getting this type of talent there. I don't think we can have many more seasons like we had the last year and maybe 2 out of the last 3 where we're just not, like I was looking at the stats. Danny Davis and Kendrick both had 32 catches last year. Like, that can't happen again. That cannot happen with your 2 starting wideouts. So hopefully we've got at least a few guys with 45 or 50 grabs this year. But
to your point, I've always found this interesting, and what you just said made me think of it. Like, Chimere Dike is almost already out of the program, and I feel like we haven't even used him, right? Like, right? Doesn't he feel like he just got here because we haven't? But I think he's really good. And it's almost like we've wasted. Now, we haven't because he's still here, obviously, but we're wasting the clock on really talented players at times at that spot. And it was nice to see Skyler Bell get in a little bit last year, Markus Allen, both of whom just looked the part. So I'm hopeful we're not going to do the same with those 2 that we did kind of with Chimere.
I know. I was just thinking actually earlier this morning, I'm like, dude, Chimere has a really good, let's say he has 65 grabs for 800 yards. And at Wisconsin, he might just go pro this year. Sure. It could be like Quintez's last year.
Sure.
I do feel like, but last year in general felt like a wasted year in many ways, at least with the passing game. It was just a dumpster fire. But I do feel really good about the young talent. I was watching Tommy McIntosh's high school highlights, and God, I think he's going to be good for us. I hope he gets a chance this year on a couple of scripted plays where, whoever, even I don't want to bring up OSU, but, in a game against, let's just say OSU, they put him out there. They have no idea, anything about that guy. And he goes deep, on some 3rd string DB.
Jump ball. He could be who we thought Tanner McAvoy might be able to be when they put him at receiver for like 7 plays, but right?
He had more time in the pros at wideout than he did.
He did. Great, former great Badger safety Tanner McAvoy, but McIntosh could be that crazy red zone jump threat weapon. I love the group of receivers coming in. I really like the 2 redshirt freshmen, and obviously we talked about Chimere. I want to pick your brain on Chimere quick and kind of end there. How good do you think he actually is? Because I don't think we really know.
Yeah, I agree, because again, last year was just like what happened, but I think he can be just as good as Quintez. He's got kind of a similar body shape. It looks about the same as far as his speed. He looks like a grown man out there. He snags the ball out of the air. He reminds me a lot of Quintez. And if it's a successful season and he doesn't get hurt, knock on wood, I think he'll have 55 to 60 catches. And I think he'll have, 8 touchdowns or so. I think the first season, as a freshman, I was like, dude, that guy is going to be a pro wideout. Like, he's got the talent to be an NFL player. So, and come to find out, now that we've seen Kendrick blowing it up in preseason, tiptoeing along the sidelines for the Bengals, maybe we've had other pro talent that we didn't utilize the way that we should have. So hopefully Engram changes that.
Well, and even Danny Davis looked decent, right? Like
that back shoulder for the Packers, that touchdown the Niners. Yeah.
Turns out there's a little more talent there than perhaps we realized, or not even realized, but we just couldn't utilize it. I think we knew there was more talent there. Last question here. Who has more catches this year, Dean Engram or Markus Allen?
I hope Allen. I hope Engram has 25 to 30 catches, and I hope that Allen has 35 catches. And I think if it is Allen and they're both healthy, we've had a really good season, because he's going to make some big plays. That guy has, he's got the body frame. He's another guy who right away, like against Rutgers last year, it's like, where's this guy been? This guy looks like a pro.
Yeah, he did, right?
Yeah, so I'm like, and with that name, you didn't have him out there earlier? I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I think Allen, and again, we don't want to be having this conversation about Allen next year like we're having with DK, like we wasted a couple of years. I hope that he has 30 to 35 catches this year. I could see him averaging like 16 to 18 yards a catch. He's been hauling them in over dudes in practice. I think Allen, if we have a good season, and I think if it's a rough season, and Engram ends up being like the Jack Dunn where we're just praying to God we can get 5 yards on a play, then Engram has 40 to 45 catches. But if things go the way that I think they should, I think Allen, Bell, and DK will actually be our leading wideouts.
I think that would bode really well for the season, to your point, because Allen looks like Anquan Bolden out there. He looks like a total dude. Absolutely. All right. I love it. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit best case, worst case. We're just going to continue expounding on this. Keep Scott on the show as long as possible. But first, today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn, as we gear for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. And LinkedIn is something I've used many, many times in my professional career. Help connect to the right people, just help pick the brains of people in the type of industries that you want to get into. LinkedIn is a tremendous professional resource for networking, for finding new people, for reaching out to new opportunities, and for advertising your job and your opportunities. You're able to create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs, reach their professional network, which is the largest in the world. Add your job, and the people on LinkedIn will help spread the word that you're hiring so your network can find the right people to hire. Simple tools, screening questions. LinkedIn finds it easy to make the right candidates for you. Screen out the people that don't need to be interviewing for your job. Win-win. No wasted time on either side. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn as #1 delivering hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Also want to thank everyone for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. When you're done here, go check out the Ultimate College Football Preview, 7-episode preview, college football experts, local team experts, Odyssey experts. Get you ready for the season, right? All the college experts in one area, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, check it out, Ultimate College Football Preview. And we're going to bring Scott back on the show, continue talking receivers, best case, worst case. Again, worst case, we're kind of shying away, unless it's players that have really been hurt a lot from injuries. But let's start worst case, Scott. That's kind of how we've been doing it. Where could this season for the receivers kind of go down the drain?
I mean, if it turns into last season again, I think we're going to know after the first few games how different this offense is going to be. Realistically, I'm not thinking that we're going to come out in those first 3 games and look like a completely different offense and look amazing. But I want to see us playing in space more. I want it to be more multi-dimensional, throwing the ball more, not running the ball 67% of the time. And, build off of that as we get into conference play instead of playing it so close to the vest. So worst case, it turns into last year, because last year was the worst case of basically any non-triple option team that imaginable for as far as passing the ball is concerned. So worst case, again, our 2 starting wideouts have 32 catches apiece. Right. I don't see it happening. I really do think that we are going to be more multidimensional. We're going to focus on, and see in the pros too, and I'm hoping that Engram brings this, you've got to play, like they have a system, but you have to play to the strengths of your players and find out what those strengths are. And I don't think we've done a good job of that, and with our running backs too, even though, we're on wide receivers, like we've got to do a better job of not forcing guys who are speedsters between the tackles, like play to their strengths, get Garendo on the outside. So hopefully we see that in the passing game and open it up more, even if we can do like a 55, 45 ratio on, running to passing. But worst case is last year.
That's a terrible case too. That would be a brutal season to sit through.
Yeah,
let me give you a devil's advocate worst case.
Gotcha.
Okay, because I think you and I are actually most on this one on the same page. With I think we both really like this young group. We want them to open it up more. We want them to utilize the talent. But what if these young players who we've only seen, we don't really know, especially with Allen, especially with Skyler, we've seen flashes, right? We don't know with Dean. We don't know with the other guys. I think we know Chimere's at least good. But what if the young players just aren't that good or not that ready, right? Like, what if the worst case is all this young talent that we think is good and ready either is overblown, overhyped? You know, is there a chance for that here? Like, because we really don't have any proven number one receivers on this roster right now that have done it.
I mean, if so, then it kind of goes into what I personally have felt for the last few years, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but it's that we haven't been developing offensive talent. Mm-hmm. We weren't developing, and you were talking about this on the offensive line preview, how that's finally going to happen now, and we know that it's not in doubt with Bostad. I mean, how much development have the wide receivers had under Whitted? And I think a lot of this has been kind of clouded by Chris and Rudolph. And now Chris backing away and Rudolph gone, I think we'll be able to see a lot, more clearly what the impact Whitted has, Engram has. And if it was their coaching or if it was just the impact that Chris had with his conservative tendencies and Rudolph had, well, with his conservative tendencies. So
there's a lot of conservative there.
There's a lot of conservative there, and we saw that play out over the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, we all had to see it every single week. Well, there was a couple times where we wouldn't see it, and we're like, where's this been? We opened it up, and we looked like a different team. I remember one game when, or maybe it was a couple of games, when Crookshank was running Wildcat, and it was like, I don't know, we're running, multiple sets and options, and then sometimes it just went away.
No, not to get you off, but sometimes even when it felt like they were opening it up, it felt like forced or overly complicated. Like, let me give you an unpopular opinion, and this very quick segue because I don't want to take away from the receivers. But Chris will occasionally run that middle tight end screen. He did it to Ferguson. I hate that play straight up. People seem to love it and lose their minds over it. It's a complicated play. It's hard to pull off. We run it maybe twice or 3 times a season, and you get like 13 yards, and people are like, my goodness, the offensive creativity. I'm like, just throw a receiver screen and get 8 yards. Like, why don't we? It's way easier. Like,
and go back and watch those Nick Toon highlights where that was just easy money. It was like
that's easy money. And instead we're like running this tight end middle screen, which is a really hard play to pull off. And even if you hit it, Ferguson's not going for more than 20 yards at best. So I don't know. I think even when they try to open it up, it's almost like they get too cute, or it's almost like they don't know how to do it. So like, let's run this super complicated play.
I think it's being more concise. And you can make things, as you well know, when you watch Kyle Shanahan's offense, you can make things look really complicated. Actually, just switching some simple concepts up. You don't have to, but a lot of it is deception and running, similar plays out of multiple formations. So,
I'm excited to see what Engram might do. Let's shift this now. So that was the worst case. Let's shift this best case. If things go right, realistic best case, but if things go right, how good can this receiver group be this year?
I think we can be the best that we've had in a long time. Maybe even since, maybe in the last 20 years. And to be honest with you, I expect us to get to about 80% of best case scenario this year.
I like it.
I'm obviously worried, and I just went back and watched some of that Arizona State game today, which, refreshed my worrying about Mertz with the lack of accuracy at times. It felt like we were going to thump them by about 5 or 6 touchdowns there, and then all of a sudden everything just went to hell. But I expect him to have at least 17 touchdowns this year. And I think that, as I said earlier, I think that Dike can get 55 grabs or so. And whoever our second wideout is needs to get more than 40. And best case, again, we've got like 4 guys, with receivers / tight ends with like 35 or more catches this season.
That'd be awesome. Because if you're doing that, Braylon's feasting. Ches is feasting.
That's what's up. Exactly. And using it out of multiple formations, giving them multiple looks. And that'll open up the running game. And then you've got the outside open for Garendo to come in on some big splash plays, play to his strengths, his speed.
Yeah, and the other thing with this too, it's hard to just talk sometimes just about receivers, right? Because the receivers need the quarterback to throw them the ball, who needs the offensive line to block for them. So it's hard almost to say best case without kind of loosely tying it all together. But if you want to loosely tie it all together, best case is Bobby Engram helps invigorate the play calling. Bob Bostad makes the offensive line better, which makes Graham Mertz more comfortable, right? And now you have these, and I don't think any of that's unrealistic, by the way.
We know one of those things is definitely going to happen.
Correct.
Like Bostad is that's in the bank. You can take that to the bank.
100% agree, right? And I don't even think the other ones are crazy, right? Like I do think Bobby Engram should be able to invigorate some of this. I do think Mertz should be more comfortable just having a better line in front of him. So if those things happen, man, that best case for receiver starts to look a lot more realistic, I would think.
Yeah, and like I said, I feel confident we can get to at least 80%. Well, best case, Dike has like 65 catches, I should say. I was giving you my 80% of the best case I was thinking of. But best case, Dike has like 65 grabs, 12 touchdowns. Allen has 35 catches. Bell has 45 grabs. Engram has 30 grabs. And then this team looks completely different.
Yep. And scary. This team,
scary.
If you can just, we've talked about it. This is this is Captain Obvious stuff, but if you can just keep them off balance, man, Braylon Allen is still the best offensive player on this team.
Yeah. The frustrating thing is I feel like the potential for this type of a team, while I do think our young wide receiver talent is looking great on paper right now, I feel like it's been there too. Like if you remember a few years back when we had, at wideout, we had a young Danny Davis, we had Taylor, we had Quintez, we had Ferguson, we had JT. Like we could have had a balanced attack the way that we're talking about this year. And for a brief moment, like in that Orange Bowl against Miami, that was like perfect Wisconsin.
Yeah, we had it. Yeah, but I will say this, the game before that against Ohio State, we couldn't throw the ball, right? So I hear 100% hear you. But yeah.
Hornibrook, that was one of his worst games. We couldn't complete this. And Chris actually called an amazing game that game. And we were a couple screen passes away. If he could just executed a couple screens.
We were it was one of the worst Hornibrook games, like in his Madison career. It was just, I'm almost positive he completed like 43% of his passes. Like I have to go back and actually look at that, but yeah, the next game against Miami, obviously a somewhat lesser team, but he just tore them up, right? Danny Davis had an incredible game. Anyway, let's move on. Coming up on Locked On Badgers, we're going to keep Scott on the show. We're not trying to take any more depressing looks back at Ohio State losses. We're going to grade the receiving position, talk about what we think it is now and look into the future for a few years. There might be a little bit of disagreements and differences there, so stay tuned for that on Locked On Badgers. Welcome back to Locked On Badgers. Thank you so much for making this just one of your first listens every single day. Really, really, really do appreciate, A, everybody that's listening, and B, all the amazing people that are able to come on the show. I always, especially people who come on the show more than once, they're coming on the show more than once for a reason. Like I had multiple people tell me Scott was great the first time on here, very insightful. I think we get smarter by having people like him on the show, different perspectives. So, definitely, again, not just saying that because you're here, man. I really do appreciate it. I think we all get smarter by kind of sharing our input and our voices out there. So
I really appreciate that. And I've appreciated this community and communicated with a lot of people in the threads under the videos. And there's been a lot of great discussion, a lot of different points of view, but in general, a lot of productive conversations too.
Yeah, I agree. They haven't those conversations in the YouTube channel haven't really developed like a lot of message boards do. That'll probably come, but it hasn't yet. Let's grade the receivers. So let's start like we always do this season only. Grade our receivers
as an entire unit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say B+. And a lot of that, almost all of it actually, is potential. I have a really good feeling about, that I really think we're going to hit it. We know Bostad. We know, as you just said, it all goes together. It all ties together. And Bostad, that offensive line, and if we are cynical about last year, we could say, well, why wouldn't we be? But, we could say, listen, Mertz suffered greatly because of the horrible protection. Our tackles just getting murdered play after play. It got into his head. He had happy feet. And you can see that in the results. He's going to have much better protection this year up front, I feel. And I think, that's a good starting point. This young talent, I think it's going to materialize. I think with a fresh look from Engram on offense, I think it's going to, we're going to look the way that we had hoped we would look since that Miami game. I think that in general, the season's going to go that way. As long as we don't start the phone booth thing again, calling plays out of a phone, as long as PC doesn't decide he wants to, start calling plays or something again. I think it's a B+, and I think it could be an A at the end of the season. I really feel like we could be sitting here in 5 months going, this was the best passing team that we had since the year with Russell Wilson.
That's awesome. I love the optimism. I'm going to go a little lower. Like I'm going to go B- for this year because I'm just not sure if we have a dude. Like I think Chimere's that guy. I think, but we're not sure. Right. And at the end of the year, if the receiver's underwhelmed, it wouldn't shock me. And I don't think it will only be potentially because of the quarterback, so I'm with you with the young talent. I don't know if it's quite there this year. So I'm going to go B- this year, but I'm going to take the first one on this one. I'm going to say A- looking ahead 2 or 3 years, because I think the sky is crazy high for Skyler Bell in a couple of years, for Markus Allen in a couple of years. And then we talked about the recruits coming in, McIntosh, Vinny Anthony. I think Vinny Anthony's crazy underrated. Big time track guy out of Kentucky, like very athletic, big play machine. And then Tommy McIntosh we talked about. And then in this year's class, if we talk about who we got here, Tretch Kekahuna coming originally out of Hawaii. Yeah. Oh my goodness. He's like, I don't even know if we really had a player quite like him. Like he's a slot dude, but he's yoked up. He's really explosive. So 2 or 3 years down the road, man, I love this group. So I'm going to go A-. I'm curious where you're at looking forward 2 or 3 years.
I agree with you. I think we'll be a B or a B+ this year. And again, I do think that we're going to be sitting here at the end of the season feeling really good moving forward. It has to happen this year. Like our passing game has to be much better. It just has to. For recruiting, to keep it. The thing I'm actually worried about is if we look great for a couple of years under Bobby Engram and then Dean leaves and then he, he comes into Wisconsin, turns our offense around. He's going to get huge job offers at other places. So let's hope that that's a problem we have to worry about. But moving forward, Vinny Anthony looks like a stud. And McIntosh, I think he's going to be great for us. I totally agree with you. I honestly, though, if I had to make a prediction, I think that this will be DK's. I think DK is going to kill it this year. And I think he is going to be that guy. I think he's going to be a stud. And I think he's going to have a Quintez, like a junior type season this year.
That'd be awesome. I mean, because if you had a dude commanding safety help, making him step back out of the box, again, we've talked about this in a number of ways. It just opens everything up. I'm excited for it, man. Scott, thank you so much for jumping on the show. As always, we'll try to get you on again if you're willing to. And absolutely. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Locked On Badgers, making it one of your first listens every day. We're going to be back at you tomorrow, continuing college football positional previews, when you're done here, go check out Locked On Big Ten. Nate Dickinson takes you around the Big Ten, all of our conference foes, what they're up to, what they're not up to. Nate Dickinson will get you caught up on that. And until then, we'll talk to you tomorrow on Wisconsin.